and welcome everybody to another Creighton School Report Extended. This is a North London secondary school that became a comprehensive, well, in the late 60s, but we're talking about the 70s. This is a book by Hunter Davis, who was sent by the Sunday Times to actually make a comprehensive report of a comprehensive system. A very important book at the time because they were phasing out, I'm sure they had phased out all the secondary moderns, but they were going to phase out even more grammar schools. So quite an important book at the time by Hunter Davis. So we're at the point of the book where it talks about the experience, their first days of some new teachers, a Miss Sutton, art teacher, and a Graham Cranford. I have to admit, I don't remember Miss Sutton as an art teacher, but I do remember Miss Rapley, and I do remember Miss Reynolds. Plenty of stories about them in the art department in the sixth form. That will come a lot later. But anyway, then it also talks about Mr. Hart. Mr. Hart, the head of the second year. He actually sort of tells his pupils, you know, my cat, you know, has got no chance of getting any O-levels, no chance of getting any A-levels, you know, no prospects at all, but the cat, his Siamese cat, keeps herself in prim condition. And then he has a look, I mean that's what it's implied in the book, he has a look at these scruffy second years that he has to deal with, and he said, and what's education doing for you? Yeah, I thought that was quite an interesting comparison. He also says in the book that he's going to retire at 60. Now this is page 22, paragraph 2. He says he wants to retire at 60s because he read somewhere that if you retire at 60, your life expectancy is at least 12 years after that. You retire at 65, you might only have 2 years. He says he's going to make a decision because Mrs. Molly Hattersley was just coming in as headmistress of the school, and depending on any changes, he would decide whether he was going to continue. Hopefully later in the book we find out if Mr. Hart did continue, and as I said before, it'd be interesting to see, well, did he carry on? Did he not carry on? Did he retire at 60? And what was his life expectancy? Yeah, I suppose it must be very hard being a head teacher, a head of a department, you know, the stresses and the strains. I don't want to belittle it because I don't know anything about it at all. But yeah, that was Mr. Hart. So the book also talks about the first day experience of Jonathan Pierce, and also another school pupil, a girl called Tracy Linden. Felt a little bit sorry for her. She was put in a class with a Mr. Matthews, and apparently he wasn't strict enough, and you know, and everyone was messing about and this and that and that and this. I can't say in my class, I mean, you know, we had, I told you last time, we had a woman called Miss Carr. I don't think anyone was messing about, although, having said that, when she used to leave the class, there was a bit of a rumpus, which you would expect with most school children. You know, typical things like, nothing too serious, just throwing paper aeroplanes out of the window. I remember people got called for that. And Mr. Kelly Reid, I mentioned him last time, he was a lovely bloke. A really big coloured guy. He used to bring this magazine, yeah, a little bit of an iffy magazine, if you know what I'm saying. And when the teacher was sort of gone for the class for a second, he would open it and he would literally sweat in the class. I'm not joking. He was like, oh, look at page 22. Look at page 22. And all of us, we used to go with our exercise book and we used to pat down Kelly Reid and say, calm down, calm down. I thought that was pretty funny, but there was nothing too unruly in our class. We're really happy to have a class like that. So I talked about the lads in our class. I want to talk about some of the girls. We had a girl called Edwina Hewitt, Nice looking girl actually. I actually did take a fancy. You know the first crush of Creighton school, if you want to put it that way. Anyway, it was about 2 weeks into the school, and the teacher said to me, "Hand out the exercise book, Andreas." I said, "I'll go over." I mean, it's the first 2 weeks of the school. I don't know everybody's name, and I mix up the exercise book between another girl. And she turns around and she says, "Don't you know who I am by now?" And I said, well, it's difficult enough to remember the boys' names after 2 weeks, let alone all the girls' names. She was a little bit moody. I don't think her mood changed when they changed her name from Edwina Hewitt to Edwina Chewett. She wasn't too happy about that. She lasted about a year. She left in the first year. She was replaced in the second year by a girl called Kay Philippou. Kay Philippou, another nice girl. I remember we used to wear these flares. Oh, they were horrible things, you know. You probably heard about it if you're too young to know about it, but these flares, I used to actually believe that jeans were made like that. You know, they would flare, you would walk, they would make a noise, they were horrible. But the girls used to wear something called bell bottoms. You know, if you can imagine flares were like that, the girls were wearing something that was like this. And all I remember her coming into the class after it's been wet outside and raining, and the water had soaked almost up to her knees. I remember her from that. And also we had a girl called Laura Ball. Yeah, Laura Ball, a small girl. I remember Dr. Singh actually took over our registration one day, and he says, yes, Laura Bolly. I was at the back of the class, I cracked up with some other pupils in there. He goes, "Laura Bolly!" I just couldn't help to crack up the way Dr. Singh was talking. Does anyone know where Laura Bolly is? You know, no Bolly? That's pretty cruel, but I do remember Dr. Singh. That's the first time I was introduced to Dr. Singh. I think it was about the second year or something. Came in to do a registration, and he was already a bundle of laughs. And we also had a girl in our class called Carol Purvis. Now, a few years later, all of us, all the boys in our class, we went to see a film called Return of the Pink Panther. Yeah, Inspector Clouseau and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, we're all in the back row. It's all our class, including some lads from the other first year class. So it was a whole load of us, at least 35 all in the back row. Anyway, Carol Purvis comes in. She's obviously with an older person. It must be her father. And they're sitting down. You can imagine, I mean, we were heckling. I mean, I wasn't heckling, but you can imagine, you know what boys are like in the back of a cinema. And Larry Montag shouts out, "Isn't he a bit too old for you, Purvis?" I was cringing. I was actually cringing. I mean, just imagine it. You know, you go out, you know, after a hard day's work, you go out for a cinema, a little bit of comedy and everything. You want to relax. And then you have you got your whole class behind you, all the lads and everything. They're heckling every 5 minutes and things like, "Get your hands off him, Purvis, you pervy!" I just felt really, really sorry. Anyway, going back to the Creighton report. Now remember, this is a comprehensive system compared to a grammar system, which, as I said before, was being phased out. The kind of classes that you wouldn't do in a grammar school, because it's more of an academic school, are classes like woodwork, metalwork, needlework, music, technical drawing, car mechanics, and a subject called RE. Now, when my sister was in William Grimshaw, she used to know it as RI, Religious Instruction. And I would imagine there must be some kind of political correctness going on even in that time, from the 60s to the 70s. My sister said to me that she learned only Christianity. Only Christianity is in the 60s in this religious instruction class. So they changed that. I always knew it as RE, Religious Education. We used to have a lovely woman called Miss Cross. a coloured woman. She was full of personality. I said her classes were fully engaging. So I don't remember being taught any religion at all in RE. No Christianity, Buddhism, Islam, Judaism, no, nothing of that kind. But they were the most interesting classes because there was more of a social discussion with Miss Cross. As I said, really modern teacher, really in with the pupils and everything. I used to really enjoy her classes. And I remember her telling us one story where, you remember I told you about Kelly Reid with the Yippie magazines? She told a story where, yes, I was in a class and two boys at the back were looking at these magazines, and she shouted, "You two, come here, come to the front of the class, bring what you've got." And they walked to the back, to the front of the class. And this is Miss Cross talking now. He says, and they had bright red faces as they were coming. He goes, "Bring me what you've got." Got the two magazines. She put it in a drawer. "Right, go back to your desk." And then she tells us, it's like studying. Miss Cross is talking now. It's like studying, you know, whether you're doing maths or, you know, or English or everything. They are studying the female form. You know, I mean, just imagine any other teacher that you know in the 70s catching people looking at these kind of magazines. You know, I mean, you'd be better off jumping out of the 3rd floor of the South Wing, yeah, than being caught by any other teacher. But that was Miss Cross. Really wonderful woman she was. So I already told you last time, the first day you create your 7-day timetable. You know, the timetable of where you're going to be, you know, in a 7-day period. What is a 7-day timetable? Well, I can tell you, instead of having Monday, you know, instead of knowing on Monday you've got physics in the morning, English, whatever, it would be, let's say, on day 1. So it would come to day 1, say, was on Monday. Day 5 would be Friday, but when Monday comes again, you would have day 6 and day 7. You know, I thought that was quite strange. I asked my sister about it. Well, what's the wisdom behind this 7-day system? She says to me, "Oh yeah, well, you know, you don't want to think every Monday you've got this and that and that and this, and every Friday, you know, you have a 7-day period so that, you know, on a Friday and everything, it's sort of a bit different for you." I said, I thought that was a pretty nice idea. Anyway, there used to be 45-minute lessons, and if my memory serves me correctly, you used to have 4 45-minute lessons in before lunch, and after lunch you would have 2 45-minute lessons. Remember, sometimes you would have a double lesson. Obviously, PE is a double lesson, for instance. Anyway, working it out, for instance, you go to registration. I seem to remember you would go to your form class 10 to 9. Your registration would only take 10 minutes. Your day starts from there. Now remember, we were all over the place. You had 2 buildings, for instance. It used to take, they estimated in the book that it is just walking distance, 5 minutes. I would say, you know, walking briskly and as a kid, you should be able to take 5 minutes walking between the wings. But it was terrible. You know, it was nice when it was summer, but when it was raining and it was this and that, sometimes you would go for 1 45-minute lesson down the south wing, for instance, and then to the north wing for another one, and backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards. I didn't mind that so much. I thought that was quite exciting. In my 6th form, they changed it back to a 5-day system. A 5-day system, the lessons now are 35 minutes. Per lesson, which I know was like that in a lot of other schools in other districts, but every lesson would virtually be a double lesson, although I remember a cousin of mine who went to another school said when there were 35 minutes for 35-minute lessons, you open your book and, you know, it's you know, before you know it, you're packing up and going to another lesson. But I was really upset, you know, in the 6th form when they changed it back to a 5-day system, because on Monday morning I had A-level maths, A-level physics, A-level chemistry, all in the morning, every Monday morning. So I was pretty peeved about that. I thought actually the 7-day system was actually pretty good. So as I said last time, your form class is where you buy your dinner tickets. Your dinner tickets, 12 pence a day, 60 pence for the whole week. Sounds very cheap, I know, but even at that time, being a first year, you cannot afford to be stupid, even if you are stupid. If you know what I'm saying. You just cannot afford to be stupid. Because, you know, I go down there, I'm waiting in the queue for my very first school dinners. Looks like a long queue, looks like it's never going to end. But anyway, the sixth formers, they walk past, they got special privileges obviously, being sixth formers, they don't have to wait in any queue. But they would stop with us and say, spare tickets, any spare tickets, anyone got any spare tickets? Now you and I know there's no such thing as a spare ticket. You know, there was no racket in Creighton, for instance. I couldn't just sort of say, yeah, my 12p ticket, give me 15 pence for it. Sixth formers can easily get hold of tickets for the correct price. Anyway, any spare tickets, any spare tickets? So he looks at me, I said, well, how much will you give me for it? 7 pence. I'll take it. So I get the 7 pence and I'm really happy. You know, he goes off with a 12p dinner ticket that he spent 7 pence. And I go up to, in the south and north wing, they used to have these ice cream vans. They used to stop in the lunchtime. They didn't just sell ice cream, they were selling chocolates. They used to sell hamburgers and hot dogs. Hot dogs at that time were 7 pence, and I remember hamburgers were 13 pence. So I go up to the ice cream van. As I said, I wasn't too much into school dinners. In my primary school, they forced us to eat school dinners. I couldn't stand it. So I buy my hot dog. It's a little thing. It's the nicest thing I've ever tasted, but I'm still hungry after that, you know. It's only a small hot dog for 7 pence, and I'm sort of thinking, clever me, I've just sold a 12p dinner ticket, you know, I would have had a full meal, and I've sold it for 7 pence. So the next day, I'm in the same queue, exactly the same place, and the same sixth formers are walking past. Any spare tickets? Any spare tickets? And I'm sort of leaning against the wall, and sort of and he remembers me from yesterday, you know, there's any spare tickets? I said, there's no such thing as a spare ticket. So, you know, even if you're stupid, one cannot afford to be stupid. So you might be asking yourself, well, but why buy the tickets in the first place? There's such a thing as mums, mothers, mummies. She used to ask me, show me your dinner tickets. So I would show her that I bought 5 dinner tickets for that week. Anyway, weeks used to go by, my mummy never used to ask me anymore, she just used to give me the 60 pence. So, as I said, I never liked school dinners, so I never used to go. So I used to go up to the ice cream van and I used to buy a 7p hot dog. And you're only loitering around, you know, no one allows you in the school to sit down. You're loitering around outside the south wing playgrounds and everything, and you're walking around and sort of thinking, that was a lovely hot dog, that was. Yeah, I think I'll go and have another one. So now you've spent 14 pence, so you're already into Tuesday's money. You know, and that's gone down really nicely, and you're sort of thinking, oh, who cares about Tuesday? I've got to have another hot dog. So now you've had 3 hot dogs, you know, 21 pence, you get Mondays and Tuesdays money. That's how it used to be. But yeah, one cannot afford to be stupid. Anyway, talking about the time goes on and Christmas comes around. There's a poster everywhere. Flea in Her Ear was the school play done by 5th formers. I'm not too sure if they were 5th or 6th formers, but that was the thing that was going around. And also, when I used to wait the queue, I can't believe that, I don't know who this was, but there used to be a lady sitting down on a desk waiting for people to go and buy raffle tickets for when there was a Christmas party at the end of the school to go and buy raffle tickets. I don't know how much they were, but every time I used to go past her, I used to sit down with her and I used to buy a raffle ticket literally every single day. I said, I'll have another one today, I'll have another one. I don't know who she was, if she was a teacher or anything, but I remember her sitting there. Anyway, Christmas dinner arrives. We're not missing Christmas dinner. It's the same price, it's 12 pence, you know. Everyone comes, you know, saying what the Christmas dinner's like. And we all go down, we sit and have our Christmas dinner. Whether it was turkey or not, I'm not too sure, but I've got a feeling there was something special about it. You know, there was probably turkey, there was roast potatoes. There's roast potatoes always, but you know what I'm saying. Yorkshire pudding, cranberry sauce, the works. Anyway, what I'm about to tell you used to happen every single time. Every single time I used to go to school dinners, it used to happen to somebody. Someone would loosen the salt pot, and someone would get a whole load of salt. I can understand, as I said, the fun element of that, but I mean, it used to be, you used to hear it all the time. It would happen over on this table, that table. It happened to me. If it happens to you, if you throw it all over your meat, what can you do? You push your meat aside, you're just eating the potatoes. Anyway, a particular time I remember, it's, as I said, it's Christmas dinner, the works. I've just told you, turkey, cranberry sauce, the works. And I remember there was this other first year from another class to mine, a person called Peter Bertelli. And he had his Christmas dinner, he put the works on and he sat down opposite me. And I remember him sort of pulling his sleeves up. He says, oh, I can't wait to grab into and really, get into this Christmas dinner. And he throws the salt and it was like time had stood still. I felt so sorry for him. He was just like this. And suddenly, his Christmas dinner was just a pile of salt. And he's looking at it and someone says, Merry Christmas, Bertelli. I can understand the humour behind it, as I said before, that it was actually pretty funny. I don't think Peter thought it was very funny. His Christmas has just been ruined. That used to happen all the time. I did actually feel sorry, it was like he's holding the salt pot there and he's looking at his Christmas dinner, sort of thinking, Christmas is over this year. So as I said, everywhere there's posters of the school play, which is Flea in Her Ear. So I go home and I said to my mum, I said, would you like to go and see this play? I fancy going and seeing, everyone's talking about it and everything. And my mum says yes. And we go down and we see the play Flea in Her Ear. There's only two things I remember about the play. I can't remember anything. This is the indelible mark that this play has left on me. I remember a fifth former coming out of like the understairs or a cupboard, in her bra, knickers and suspenders. That's the only thing I can remember about the play. I have to tell that fifth or sixth former that, they made an indelible impression on a 12-year-old. But that's all I remember about that. And also, if you remember, I told you about the lottery tickets and everything. On the lottery ticket, it said, the draw will be held in the north wing of Creighton Comprehensive School at 7:30. And I remember it's coming up to 7:30, and I say to my mum, there was 5 prizes. I can't remember exactly what the others were, but the top prize was a bottle of 12-year-old whiskey, a really nice bottle. And I said to my mum, I am going to win you. When you're a confident first year, when you're a confident 12 years old, I said, Mum, I'm going to go down and I'm going to win you the whiskey. I said, okay, let's see. Anyway, I go down there, and yes, the draw's at 7:30, but it doesn't say on the ticket that the actual show, the actual fair actually started at 4:30, and everything's sort of finishing. And I said, well, why didn't you tell me? I would have come earlier. I saw Patrick Brosnan there, and he's sort of looking at me and says, what kind of time is this to come? That was another first year from another class, but I said, well, I didn't know about it. I'm just here to see the lottery draw. And he said, well, good luck with that. Okay, so I knew, it was in a drum and everything. I knew, well, I bought all my tickets really early on. So as people were buying tickets for the last minute, and they put them all on, and you could see, they turned around the drum and all the old tickets came on. I said, I'm in here. So they pick it out. I haven't won one of the 5 prizes, another one, and suddenly I win a prize. But it's not the whiskey, it's this giant tin of biscuits. It was really huge. I go up on stage and shake hands with the guy and everything. I'm sort of happy about it, but I wanted to win the whiskey. Karen Jacobs, I remember, was there. She used to go to my old school. She won a prize and everything. I got a feeling that she actually won the whiskey. I said, Karen Jacobs, do you want to swap? No chance. But anyway, I go home and I tell my mum, I said, I'm really sorry, Mum. I wanted to win you the whiskey, but I won you this giant box of biscuits instead. She was as happy as punch, which I should have been. You know, as a 12-year-old, you know, you're really disappointed. You know, I've gone all that way. The only reason I went that way was to see the draw. I missed the fair. You know, I missed everything else, so at least it was worth going. But I was really happy and chuffed about that. So it's the first day of PE. Very first PE lesson. We bought, obviously, when you go, we're still with school uniform here. So you got your school uniform, standard grey jumper and everything. The school kit was red shorts, white top. Anyway, it comes up to the day and my mum says to me, aren't you packing your PE kit today? It's your first day of PE. I said, yeah, Mum, what are we going to be doing today? You know, the teacher's only going to go around and show us the gym, you know, show us how to take out things safely. You know, this is the red grass. You know, this is where we'll be playing football. What PE we're going to do? I'm not going to bother to take my my PE kit. Yeah, a clever little first year like me has to do that, and then I go. We have a Welsh teacher called Mr. Jones. On the first day, I see everybody and they're all in their kits. And I'm sort of looking and saying, oh no, what have I done? Anyway, I come out of the changing rooms. Mr. Jackson's standing at the door. Where's your kit? Forgot it, sir. Okay, carry on. You know, nothing too untoward on the first day. As I said, you know, people are, you know, it's the first day, for God's sake. Anyway, Mr. Jones is sitting on the chair with his back to the changing rooms and all the first years are sitting on the floor, and he goes through the drill, like I was saying before that I thought we were going to do, you know, without our kit on, but he says, right, we're just going to go. If I tell you to do something, you do it immediately. No messing about or you get the gherky. If you are told to be quiet and you're not being quiet, you'll get the gherky. If you don't do this or you do that, you'll get the gherky. And I'm sort of saying, what the hell's this gherky? He says, it's the slipper. Oh, all right then. The thing I can tell you that we never had Mr. Jackson. I never had Mr. Jackson ever in PE. Of course, I remember a lot of stories with Mr. Jackson. Obviously, Mr. Jackson would join with Mr. Jones, and you just remember stories about Mr. Jackson. Very colourful character, Mr. Jackson. Comedic timing, perfectly. I remember one day at the end of the school year, the first year, we're doing swimming and we're all standing there, and Mr. Jackson would just say, right, safety protocols, if you're in the pool and you need help, put your hand up, things like that. Don't jump about, don't jump on people. You know, Mr. Jackson was just going through the safety protocols. And then he comes up and he picks on a small lad called Mark Barham. But you know, I can tell when someone is fond of somebody. You know, everyone would say, oh, stop picking on me all the time. But he used to be very fond of a small lad called Mark Barham. And he would say things like, Mark Barham, he's wearing some really lovely perfume today. I don't know who he's going to try and attract in this class, but really nice, Mark Barham. I mean, we all used to laugh. So, as I said, we're at the swimming, and this is Mr. Jackson talking. Yes, and Mark Barham wanted to ask me a question. So I said to him, yes, Mark, what is it? And he asked me, is the water wet? Well, I can tell Mark Barham, everyone's bursting out laughing. I can tell Mark Barham that the water is wet. Maybe not as wet as last year, but wet nonetheless. I thought that was the funniest thing I ever heard. Everyone's laughing, but he really did used to like this guy called Mark Barham. So it's the last day of the first year, and my mum asked me, just like she asked me on the first day, why aren't you taking your PE kit today? I said, all week, Mum, we've been playing ball games. You know, all the teachers have been nice enough, say you've got a free period. You know, people used to bring in Cluedo, Monopoly. There was one even game that someone brought in, I can't remember exactly the name of it, but it was $1 Million Picture. It was the first time I ever played that game, and I actually had the $1 Million Picture. and I sold it for £750,000. And I'm saying, and David Singleton, you know, the clever guy, you know, the one I told you that if you imagine Magnus Pike as an 11-year-old with long hair, you'd actually picture David Singleton, the cleverest kid in the school. But he said to me, "You don't have to sell it, Andreas." I said, "Well, now you tell me. You know, I've just lost 250,000 quid. Anyway, we used to have fun playing ball games. So as I said, my mum asked me, "Why aren't you taking your PE kit today?" And I said, "Well, we'll probably have a free period, Mum, we'll play ball games." That's how stupid I was. So we go down to PE, everyone's got changed into their PE kit, and 7 other boys haven't remembered their PE kit. So I told you the first day I didn't bring it down, but it was okay, you know. Mr. Jones just said to me, "Well, okay, you know, you're doing cross-country running, just running your trousers and your vest and shoes." And there was nothing wrong with that. Anyway, there was no getting away with it this time. You know, Mr. Jackson was really cross. Everyone's in the changing rooms in the north wing, and this is just in front of the showers. So the 7 boys have to stand up, you know, I'm one of them, and Mr. Jackson comes across. So the 7 kids are standing, they're in front of everybody else, everyone's watching, they're all in the changing rooms. So we're all standing in the line, I'm the penultimate, and Mr. Jackson comes, and the first boy comes up. Mr. Jackson says, "Where's your kit?" "Forgot it, sir." "Bend over." Not too hard, just a hit. The next boy comes up. "Where's your kit?" "Forgot it, sir." "Bend over." Now you could have rewind it. He said it exactly the same way. You know, you could have looped this, you know, time and time again, exactly the same way. He comes up to me. He says to me, "Where's your kit?" And I do remember this. I didn't even wait for him to say, "Bend over." You know, I just bent over and I took my punishment. Anyway, the last boy is a Mr. Michael Peppu. Michael Peppu, he's the guy I told you in the last episode, you know, the kind of person he was. You know, he always used to talk down to you, always intellectually superior to you. You know, whenever you talk to me, he used to be like that with everybody. Okay, he was really intelligent, I can understand that. But, you know, he would talk down to you as if to say everything you're doing is wrong and this and that. I couldn't stand him. To give him an example of what he was like, imagine Piers Morgan. He even had the same shape. I mean, he was Greek, Michael Peppu. He even had the same shape, the same attitude as Piers Morgan.
Privacy, but I think
in the Royal Box at Wimbledon,
place,
literally in the Royal Box at Wimbledon,
in public,
with the world's cameras beamed on their heads. It's not a private place.
Should probably take
if you want to be private, don't go to the Royal Box at Wimbledon.
You just want to smack Piers Morgan round the face. Exactly the same. Anyway, and as I said, Michael Peppu's a big guy. So, Mr. Jackson, "Where's your kit?" "Forgot it, sir." "Bend over." And he decides to give him one smack. I remember I went back to stand with all my friends, you know, where they were all changed and everything. All I could turn around, I thought I saw a rocket. You know, like those cannons where they have a rocket man coming out. I thought he was going to come out. You know, and Michael Peppu was a really tough guy, and he was nearly in tears with that. But I'm only glad. I'm so glad that even the first year I had the good sense. I'm glad that I didn't do this. "Andreas, where's your kit?" Well, actually, sir, I thought we were going to play ball games. You know, I thought we were going to play either Monopoly, Cluedo, maybe a card game, you know, shilling on the side. Right. Okay. So you thought you were going to play ball games in my PE lesson, did you? Yes, sir. Okay. Bend over. He sent Michael Peppu to the moon. He would have sent me to Alpha Centauri if I said that. Thank God I had the good sense not to say that. So just to finish that story, what he does is Mr. Jackson gives us community service. Community service, I don't know where we got these now, but he gave us some snippers, and I remember we had to cut all the excess shrubs all over that were coming through the fence, in the journey between the South and the North Wing. And for the first time in history, I've known Michael Peppu all the way up to the sixth form. It was the first time he was talking to me peer to peer, man to man. It was the first time he never talked down to me. And he was saying, oh my God, that Mr. Jackson, he's such a terrible, terrible person. We believed that we were going to have Mr. Jackson the next year. Remember, we were first years, just about to go into the second year. And I remember him going, this is Michael Peppu. He said, please God, please don't let it be Mr. Jackson next year, please. And if I was back there, I would have turned around to him. I said, I don't mind Mr. Jackson at all. I mean, he gave you a good bang up your ass, didn't he? Not the first time is that going to be, is it, Michael? But to be fair, I'm actually sorry that he never hit me a bit harder. Left a little scar on my, the posterior part. If he had left a scar, I would have showed you all there. I would have worn it with pride. I would have worn it with pride, like a medal, like the Purple Heart. I would have shown you all it. At least I can say I did actually get a whack at the you-know-what by Mr. Jackson, which I'm actually pretty proud of, to be honest with you. And I'm actually pretty sorry that we never had Mr. Jackson, because he was such a colourful character. We had Mr. Jones, we had Mr. Griffiths, and we had Mr. McAloodies. Mr. McAloodies, plenty of stories with him, but Mr. Griffiths and Mr. Jones, I can't remember too much. Mr. Jackson was a completely colourful character. Anyway, that's the conclusion. We will continue the Creighton report another time. I've been told by some people who watch this and everything they want to actually correction. It's not a fake copy, obviously it's not a fake copy. He says it's not even a scaled down copy. It's just a cheap copy of the Creighton report, the one that I have. That makes me feel a lot better. A lot better that I've got a cheap version of the Creighton report. But anyway, I hope you all actually enjoyed this particular episode. And as always, I hope to see you again another time.